Thank you for joining me, Jen. This is Reflections on Health podcast. I'm very excited to interview my next guest here. So, Jen, can you start by telling us a little bit about your journey and how did you start and get into being a naturopath, nutritionist, and herbalist?
Certainly, Jackie. So my mum was sick. So when I was about 5, she had terminal cancer, and then she had several other types of cancer. So she started with breast. She had brain tumors when I was in high school. So I started researching health and learning a lot about it. And then I became quite good friends with my careers advisor. Growing up in a country town, it's always easy to become good friends with your teachers. And he suggested that I study naturopathy. And as soon as I saw the information, I was like, oh yes, this is definitely my thing. So it's been my passion ever since. And mum ended up passing at 60. She had endometrial cancer, but that was prior to me really specializing in cancer. So after she passed, then I became really passionate about cancer. So yeah.
So is that what you specialize in now?
Yes. So I just started seeing a gentleman yesterday with stage 4 bladder cancer, and the medical prognosis is they remove the bladder, which means you have a bag for the rest of your life. So obviously a lot of people don't want to go ahead and do that surgery. And then he told me that the actual radiotherapy, chemotherapy, immunotherapy is only about 50% effective, whereas the herbs and supplements we have, as well as the repurposed drugs. So I work with a few different doctors to prescribe repurposed drugs, and with that combination seems to work very well to shrink the cancers and certainly mop up any metastases anywhere in the body. So yeah.
Amazing. I love that. There's so many other options, and sometimes people think, what the doctor says or what mainstream medicine says is the only option, but there's certainly, other avenues worth exploring for people.
Yeah.
Can you take me back just a little bit further? You said, how old were you when you were young? Your mum got diagnosed?
Oh, so mum had terminal breast cancer when I was 5, and she was like, that's fine, but she did juice fasting, she did meditation, she saw a naturopath, Ian Gawler, he's in Melbourne, and did his protocol, and she did very well. So basically she did all the mastectomy, had the lymph nodes removed, did the chemotherapy and radiotherapy, but then they said, basically, there's not a whole lot we can do. So that's when she started on the journey of natural medicine, and she beat that. And I remember she said to me, she was put into a group with like 20 other people, and they're all terminal, and she said to me, I'm the only one that's still alive. So that was pretty funny. But I think mind over matter. She had 3 young kids, and she was really determined to do everything. So we kind of grew up with wholemeal bread, real butter, real food. If you were hungry, go grab a piece of fruit or a vegetable, and, no fizzy drinks, nothing like that in our house. So I guess my friends would come over and they'd be like, what's this bread? They'd have trouble with that. But so I guess that's just how we grew up, and that was our normal. And but my mum always, whenever she got a new diagnosis, she always shared it with us as kids, and, got out the medical textbooks and explained she had meningiomas when I was about 16, and so she explained, they'd have to remove part of her skull because they got grown through her skull and all of this, and but they never ever treated us like we didn't understand. And whenever I have a cancer patient come in, I try and say to them, be really open and honest with your kids, because if something, the worst does happen, and you don't get through this, your kids, some of these kids would be so shocked because they wouldn't have known what was going on necessarily health-wise with mum or dad when they were sick. So I think it's important to treat them like adults and just explain things to them. So
absolutely. I think that's very wise. Yeah, having those open and honest discussions with your kids, because they do, I feel like they understand so much more than we give them credit for sometimes, and they know what's going on and they see what you're going through, and to be able to sit down and explain that to them would, I would guess, help them through that process as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you've been pretty young, and your mum, so you said she's had several different types of cancers over the years.
Yeah.
So that's sort of been an ongoing journey for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So she had her brain irradiated when she was 3. So Westmead Hospital used to irradiate the brains of babies, and they paid my grandma for the treatment and said it was for ringworm. But they basically just wanted to see long-term safety of using X-rays like in close proximity to the body, and obviously they're not safe. So anyone who's had any kind of regular X-rays, I do see a lot of people with brain tumors, and I said, like, what, tell me about your radiation exposure. And often they would have had a lot of X-rays because they had dental work, or they had injuries to the head or eyes or something as a child. So it's really important to see a naturopath and detox that radiation from the body, because the half-life is longer than your life. So that's really important to work on removing that from the system. So, yeah.
That's so interesting. The half-life is longer than your life. So is that with injected contrasts, or is that with X-ray radiation effects as well?
X-rays, MRIs, injected contrast. And with the injected contrast, the other interesting thing is sometimes if you are going through cancer treatment, you can opt to not have the contrast if they're not finding anything. So sometimes if it's like you don't have cancer anymore and they're just monitoring you, you can opt to have the contrast or not to have the contrast. So there are some options with the Galadium to not have it if you're like doctors are open to not using it. So some of my patients do negotiate that with their doctors. So yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, it's good to know that those options are available, because sometimes that doesn't get explained well to people going through those things.
Yeah, absolutely.
So your mum got her brain irradiated at 3 years old.
Yes. And they paid my grandma, and my grandma, because she was a farmer's wife, she didn't think to question it. She knew in like her soul that it was wrong, but she thought, no, the doctor said that she needed this. And the rare type of tumor she had, her cousin also had them. And he also had the radiation treatment as well. So yeah, but I mean, it's ringworm, so you could just use tea tree oil. Like, it's not like a deadly disease or something. But anyway, I guess it's about people knowing what is and isn't right, kind of thing. So yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. And some of those long-term effects are really not well explained or not well known for a lot of these treatments and imaging modalities and things. You'd think an X-ray is fairly benign.
Yeah, but it depends on how many you have. Like, that's just it. It's probably 1 or 2 are probably fine, but if you're getting a lot of them, then that's probably when issues can start to happen. So yeah.
Absolutely. So you have a business, Get Well with Jen?
I do, yes. So,
beautiful. And what are your core principles guiding clients to wellness?
I think it's about treating the cause, like changing your diet, figuring out what the cause is. With cancer, it's interesting because there's a lot of emotional drivers, and often when you ask people, they'll be like, oh yes, I've been putting myself last, I've been putting everyone else first. Also holding on to anger, so teaching people how to let go and look at some counseling, look at some other modalities to let go of that. I do a lot of work with kids on the spectrum as well. So I work with chiropractors, speech therapists, other people. I find that if we can start to detox their heavy metals, the kids start to make sounds and start to speak. So then they'll get a lot more out of the speech therapy when they go down that path. So rather than starting something and not getting the most out of it, it's about getting the most out of the therapies that you are doing by treating the cause. And I do a lot of fertility work as well. So working with people who've gone through like 10 rounds of IVF and still don't have a baby. So so I guess it's about changing your diet, changing your lifestyle, what's not working. And sometimes it can be relationships. Sometimes people come to me in really bad relationships, and I'll say to them, look, you know that your relationship is probably having a big impact on your health. And some people will surprise me and they will actually end the relationship because of their health, and obviously they're in a place where they're ready to end that relationship, but yeah, sometimes that can be really helpful as well. So
massive. Yeah, and I think that's another thing that's completely understated, is if we are in a relationship that's not very healthy for us, or it could be a job that's not very good for us, or some sort of aspect of our life that isn't really in alignment with who we are and where we want to be and where we're going, that has massive detrimental effects. And you can have the best diet in the world, but if other things aren't in alignment, you're still going to struggle.
The job thing's interesting. I always ask people, do you love what you do for work? And if they say no, I say to them, is there something that you feel called to do something different? And often there is. And I'm like, well, what, like, can't you look into that? Because I guess if people are not happy with what they're doing, then that will affect their health. Or if they're doing really long hours. I remember I saw a solicitor once, and she was finishing at 3 a.m. and then back in the office at 9 a.m. And I just said, your body can't sustain these hours. So, looking at work-life balance is, am I pushing myself to burnout kind of thing? So, yeah.
Absolutely. And even if you are doing what you love, if you're working those sort of hours, that's
not going to be
you need sleep.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in general, do you run sort of some tests and things to look at imbalances? What do you kind of do?
Yeah, so I use a test called the 600 Foods Hair Test by Naturopathic Services. So for food intolerances, I find this to be the most effective test. And it just gives a rundown. I had a really interesting case of a little boy. He had asthma and he was hospitalised 6 times a year, but only in winter time, and he only got it in winter. And the mum was told by the doctor that it was viral asthma, and she said, but he doesn't get sick before he gets it. Anyway, when we did his hair test, wool came up, and they used a woolen blanket on his bed just in the winter time. So it was something as simple as removing that blanket. There was a lot of other things like certain dairy products that came up, and it tests lactose free and all of that. So that was really profound to see that change there. And then I had another little girl who was from a Japanese family, and they live on white rice, and she had quite severe eczema, and white rice came up on her list, and they were very good, but they went to Japan and they didn't have any options for brown rice. And they said within an hour or so, she started scratching and opening up the wounds in her arms. So it was obviously something she was really affected by. The other test we do a lot of is the oat test. So oat test will test organic acids. So basically gut health, vitamins and minerals in the body, candida. I've just had a little boy on the spectrum, and we did treat all of his candida based on that test. And he's got all these memories that are coming back from his childhood, and he's directing the carer to a house that he hadn't been to since he was 4. And he knew how to get there, and he knew where their DVDs were kept and everything. So it's kind of bringing back all these memories that he'd seemed to have lost. So that was really interesting, because obviously it wakes up parts of the brain that perhaps weren't, working as well previously. So that's exciting. And we do a lot of blood tests. I work with a GP. She actually pays me for mentoring. We do hormones on certain days of the cycle. We do male hormones as well, because men go through andropause. Especially a man, if he's gone through cancer treatment, his testosterone will be quite low, so building him back up that way. Nearly everyone is B12 deficient, so the reference ranges in blood tests are incorrect. It needs to be a minimum of 500. So if people come in with memory issues, brain fog, sore muscles, often it's B12 deficiency. So that's interesting to see. And vitamin D, the reference range for vitamin D, we go with between 100 and 150 nanomoles per litre. So we go for much higher reference ranges to keep their immune system strong. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a big point you make. A lot of the labs, they have different reference ranges to each other, but also the reference range is based on an average of the population, which is not always a healthy reference range.
I did hear that medically they are going to change the reference range for B12 to be a minimum 500. So anyone, if some people will be 173 and they will fall in the reference range. And I'm like, how's your memory? And they're like, not good. And I'm like, okay, well, this is probably why. So, and you should have energy every day. You should wake up feeling energized and ready to start the day. If people wake up fatigued, then they may have a B12 deficiency or adrenal deficiency there, or excess. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. You mentioned andropause. Can you tell me what that is? And
okay. Sure. So women go through menopause, their period stops. So they know around the age of 50, their period will stop. I mean, some women will stop in their 30s and they come to me for fertility because they've gone through early menopause and we can restart their period with herbs. Whereas like men, it can be around that 50, or it can even be earlier depending on if they've had cancer treatment or any kinds of like health issues. And then they will have low testosterone. So libido issues, trouble with erectile dysfunction, trouble building muscles. So they'll go to the gym and they can't build muscle. They'll be very fatigued. They might have trouble sleeping. So we can definitely boost testosterone naturally with herbs. So yes, they will go through that, but I guess it's not something that's spoken about as much because there's no hot flushes and their period doesn't stop. So, there's no like obvious sign that men are going through andropause as well. So,
absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely not spoken about at all. And I don't think very well known at all. Do you think it's more, men have this, maybe don't seek help as much as women or talk about these things as much as women, and maybe there's, I don't know, a bit of shame or something in having those lower testosterone levels?
Definitely.
Be a little bit, yeah.
So some men will write on the intake form, I'm here because my wife is making me come. It's pretty funny when I read that. And sometimes they'll come with their partner, and sometimes they will go through the whole consult, and then right at the end they'll be like, oh, and I've got a bit of erectile dysfunction. And then they almost say it under their breath. And I'm like, I wish people could just talk about these things, even the word penis, like, because a lot of people are brought up to use other names for a penis or a vagina, and so even saying those words, people struggle with that. And it's like, it shouldn't be a secret. It's, if this is your healthcare professional, you should be able to openly discuss this with them rather than it being like an embarrassment, because I don't think men realize how many men have this issue around that age. So yeah.
Absolutely. Can you talk me through how herbs and diet can support the body's natural healing process? What sort of role do they play?
Sure. So I guess with diet, a lot of people have a dairy or gluten intolerance or both, or they might be intolerant to a certain fruit. So I had one lady and she was on this big weight loss diet, and she was eating oranges every day as part of the diet. That was their process. And then when we did her hair test, we found out oranges caused inflammation in her body. So she took out the oranges and she was able to lose weight, which you think oranges, how are they possibly going to affect weight loss? Then we also, I'm a GAPS practitioner, so we do the GAPS diet for people who perhaps have any kind of gut issues. It really works well with kids on the spectrum to heal their gut. So removing certain foods reduces inflammation in the body. And then, like, I had one parent say to me, it's like this is the child that I knew was always there, but they were under the kind of fog of the foods that they were eating that they're intolerant to. So it's about removing those foods so then they are able to digest more efficiently, and their brain can work more effectively. So yes. And then sometimes it's simple things like the FODMAP diet might be good, low glycemic index diet, especially with kids on the spectrum. Sometimes it's a blood sugar problem. So if they're having behavioral issues, might be a problem with them not having enough protein. So increasing their protein intake to balance out their moods can really help there as well.
I think the impact of diet can be very, very understated.
Yes.
Sure. Why do we get these intolerances?
Because in Australia, we spray our wheat with a fungicide that contains mercury. And so the mercury is picked up and identified as an intolerance straight away because our body can't process mercury. And a lot of people had mercury fillings, and their mercury fillings perhaps leaked, or their grandparents' mercury fillings leaked into their body, so they've got issues there. And so we identify it often as an intolerance. In the UK, they do not spray this fungicide that contains mercury on their wheat. So often celiacs or people on a gluten intolerant can tolerate wheat in the UK rather than in Australia. The other thing is our soils are very depleted of minerals. So we're not getting really good nutritious food in Australia because they're just using the same fields over and over again instead of putting the minerals back into the field or giving that field a rest in between. So then the farming practices, I guess, are not used as well. But the other thing is we have foods on our supermarket shelves that are banned in the UK and New Zealand. So there's a lot of chemicals that we have in our foods that will create inflammation and intolerances. And they're banned in other countries. The other thing is antibiotics. Any antibiotics before the age of 1 completely destroys the gut. So anyone who's had a course of antibiotics prior to the age of 1, their gut flora will never be the same. They can do things like GAPS diet, probiotics, prebiotics to build it back up, but it won't ever come back on its own. So you're recommended to avoid antibiotics completely before the age of 1. And certainly a lot of kids are deficient in zinc. So giving kids zinc to boost their immune systems every day will make a big difference, and it really improves their IQ, improves their reading, maths abilities. So simple things like that they can be on from a very young age. So yeah. And the other thing with food intolerances is C-sections increase food intolerances because you don't get all the good bacteria on your skin on the way out. You can do seeding where you put a bag in and then coat bub in your mucus after birth. And some doctors are happy to do that, but some not so much. So it just depends. And then I guess medication, so medication in pregnancy, will affect the gut health as well. So all of those things increase our intolerances. So yeah.
Yeah, lots and lots of different reasons why we would have those things.
Mm.
Is there one perfect diet for everyone?
No, never. So say, for example, people come to me with cancer and they're like, I'm on this vegan diet. And I'm like, okay, well, a vegan diet is only indicated for those that have a bowel cancer, primary. Any other cancers, there is no research on a vegan diet. So you're better off to do a high protein, low carb diet, like a ketogenic diet with all other cancers. But every single person is different. So some people might do well on a low GI diet. Some people might do well on a GAPS diet, but everyone's different, and it's about doing what suits you. I do intermittent fasting myself, and I find that works really well for my brain. And the one researcher said you can't do intermittent fasting with adrenal fatigue, but I find it's completely fine with adrenal fatigue, and people with adrenal fatigue do really well on intermittent fasting. If they don't have a blood sugar problem, if they've got a blood sugar problem, they can't do it. But if they don't, they're fine to do it. So, yeah, I guess there's not one size fits all with anyone. So I guess, yeah, it just depends. So,
Can you explain to me what intermittent fasting is?
Okay, so intermittent fasting is that you might have a window either in the morning or in the evening where you don't eat for a period of time. So you can have things like herbal teas in that time. You can have black coffee or black tea. So it's just about avoiding foods during that window. So sometimes I'll intermittent fast to that 1 or 2 in the afternoon, and then I'll have a shake then, and then I'll have dinner. So it's just what works for your body. And I always say to people, what works for your body will be different to someone else. So it's about, trying what works for your body and seeing if you can do that. I find that I don't get hungry on it, so it works well for me. Whereas if people get really hungry and then they eat the wrong foods, then it's the wrong diet for them. Or they might need to break their fast at like 11 o'clock instead of lunchtime. So it's just about doing it to the point where you feel comfortable with it.
Yep. So you said if people have blood sugar issues, then they don't want to be doing intermittent fasting.
Well,
why is that?
If they get hangry, so if people, if they skip a meal and they feel dizzy, or they get really angry, or they call it hangry, I guess, then you don't want to be skipping meals, because then you'll be avoiding, your blood sugar levels won't be able to handle it. But if you do treat your blood sugar levels with like a low glycemic index diet or a ketogenic diet, then that would be a better option for people who feel really uncomfortable when they're doing intermittent fasting.
Okay. Are there tests you can do to know if you have blood sugar issues?
So your fasting glucose should be in the 4s. The reference range for doctors, I think it goes up to about 5.5. However, anything in the 5s is showing like a pre-diabetic state. It's showing that you have problems with processing sugars and carbohydrates. The other blood test you can do is insulin testing. So a lot of people have insulin resistance, and perhaps they've never done a fasting insulin test. The glucose tolerance test in pregnancy, a lot of countries are actually stopping that now, because you never ever starve yourself and then drink 2 liters of Coke, as in, well, you probably shouldn't. Hopefully people are not doing that. So doing that test is going to send people's blood sugar levels out of reference range. And also it will appear that you have gestational diabetes, whereas there's a new test for that called HbA1c. So it does your blood glucose over a 3-month period. And it is a more effective test to do, and much safer, because you're not dumping all of that sugar into bub, which is a really unsafe thing to do. So, they're the different tests you can do. You can certainly ask your doctor for those. A naturopath will be able to order them for you, or a functional medicine doctor as well. So there's a lot of doctors that are working more holistically now with that.
Beautiful. Do you have any common myths about natural medicine that you can clear up for us today?
So someone told me once to Google what a naturopath is on Wikipedia, and it says that we practice witchcraft.
Oh, God.
And I just want to let people know that we use TGA-approved herbs. So the herbs that we're using are produced in TGA facilities. I don't go into my backyard and make up your herb mixes. I'm not growing them. We're using things that are TGA approved. They all have an Austell number, so it means that they have to submit them to the TGA. So what is in the product does what it says that it does. So it's not just something random. But I just want to say the effectiveness of natural medicine far outweighs anything in medicine, because it treats the cause. But if you look at the clinical trials, say, for example, something like saffron is more effective than any antidepressants, yet antidepressants get prescribed, here, there, and everywhere. Yet something like saffron is a much more effective herb. There's probiotics that are more effective than antidepressants. So I guess it's the effectiveness is much more effective, but it's also about treating the diet. Some people will come to me and they've been to another naturopath and they haven't changed their diet. And I think it's really important, if you are eating foods that you're intolerant to or creating inflammation in your gut, that you take those foods out and allow your body to heal. And I'll get families that come in with another child, and I'll say to them, oh, how's, your youngest, or so your oldest that came with eczema a few years ago? Then they'll just mention that child's eating all the foods that were taken out at the time. They're able to now tolerate those foods and bring them back into the diet. So once you heal the gut, you're able to bring them back in. And in regards to allergies, there is a study that they did on a probiotic, the Lactobacillus rhamnosus, and homeopathic doses of peanuts. And it was 80% effective in reversing peanut allergies. So that was really interesting, because when I asked the researcher about it, because I assumed they're injecting the low doses of peanuts into the body, and she said, no, it's just given orally. So This treatment is now owned by a pharmaceutical company, and it is just homeopathics and probiotics to reverse peanut allergy. So that was really interesting when I heard that. And I just thought, well, you can have something that's so natural and then it gets taken by someone else. But certainly, and when people come to see me, I like them to tell me if they've been to another naturopath and they've tried something and it didn't work for them, then that works really well, because it's about them communicating what did and didn't work for them, and how it affected them that way. So, yeah.
Gosh, that's crazy. An 80% peanut allergy success rate with treatment.
Yeah, exactly. So super simple.
Yeah, it can change, I think, a lot of people's lives if they knew about something like that. Absolutely. Why do you think a lot of these really effective treatments are not known by doctors or given by sort of mainstream medical systems?
I guess, you know, perhaps they do their training. They're not learning about herbal medicine. They're not learning about nutrition. I think in medicine, nutrition is now an optional subject to take. So you can take it or you can opt out of it. So it's not something that you have to do. I remember meeting a cardiologist once, and he said when he first started practicing, he wanted everyone to change their diet and lifestyles, and then people would come back and they wouldn't have changed their diet and lifestyle. And so he said, now I just put everyone on drugs because they won't change their diet and lifestyle. So I guess it's about being proactive in your own health. Like if you're proactive in your own health, you'll be able to make the changes and heal your body. But like if you're not, then you won't be. But I guess they're just not learning about biomedical reference ranges in blood tests. So they don't know what to look for. They're not doing enough testing. When I send people for blood tests, they'll do 17 pages of blood tests. If you go to a doctor, they might do 2 or 3 pages. So they're just not doing enough in the way of testing to find out what's going on. So they're missing a lot of bits and pieces. And then I guess they're like being told you can prescribe these drugs and this is all you can prescribe. And so they're kind of, I guess, governed and are not allowed to give other options. Some doctors are happy to work with naturopaths. Some feel a bit funny about it. Over the years, I found female GPs are happier to work with me, whereas I find male GPs not always happy to work with a naturopath. So I guess it just depends on who you get there. But certainly with oncology, I mean, we have herbs that you can use in combination with chemotherapy to enhance the effects of chemotherapy. We have herbs that enhance the effects of radiotherapy, herbs that enhance the effects of immunotherapy. So it doesn't make sense to not combine them all together. But I guess there are no naturopaths in hospitals like co-prescribing. It's only if people seek, you know, an alternative while they're doing their treatment. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Do you think there's some disempowerment with people in thinking that they can affect their own health by the choices they make and lifestyle and diet and all of these things, and sort of feel like maybe health is the responsibility of someone else, a professional trained or something like that?
And definitely. And I think I always say to people, like, you are the only person that can cure your cancer because you are the person who began the process. So 95% of cancers are diet and lifestyle. 5% are genetic. So people are doing all these genetic testing. And there's like I say to them, you're not going to come up with the BRCA gene because you're in your 40s or 50s or 60s or whatever it is. You don't have a family history of cancer as children or like early teens, 20s. That's when these genes are going to affect cancers. But people who are older, it's diet and lifestyle. You've inherited like poor diet and lifestyle traits from your parents. You haven't inherited a gene. You know, you've been taught that you don't need to exercise every day because your parents don't exercise every day. Like if you see those habits from a young age, you think that that's normal. So you think, okay, well, we don't do that and we just sit here and eat these foods. And, you know, watch the news. Even something as simple as watching the news is really bad for your health. So the news is just there to design to give you fear and create anxiety and depression. And if you watch it on a regular basis, you will think the world is a bad place. But if you switch it off and you do not watch the news, you'll be like, oh, how fantastic is our world? Get out in nature, simple things like that. So yeah, but, I mean, in the future, it'd be good if we could all work together. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So definitely natural medicine and conventional medicine, there's a place where those two can combine.
Absolutely. And like surgery, if you need surgery, you absolutely need surgery. Like there's no naturopath has a magical way of, like treating something that needs to be surgically removed, or, a hip replacement or something like that. Simple things then, but we can speed up healing post-surgery. We can help pre-surgery to take down the inflammation. So there's lots of options in that regard. But yeah, certainly we can all work together. It doesn't have to be a them versus us thing. But yeah, unfortunately, they feel like we're taking away their patients or something. But it's just empowering people. Like, it's your health is your health. And, whether it's an autoimmune disease or motor neuron or whatever it is that we're reversing, you did like something to contribute to this. So then we need to like change the way you live to be able to help your body recover. So, yeah.
Can we go back to gut health?
Mm-hmm.
How important is gut health, and how can I help my own gut health? What's a few simple things that I can do?
Yeah. So things like kombucha is a drink that contains probiotics, the fermented veggies. There's lots of, like, if you've tried cabbage and you have a reaction to that, there's things like beetroot. There's other fermented veggies that are delicious that you can have in place. And I guess also sitting down to eat. Lots of people eat on the run, and your digestive enzymes won't be able to break down your food if you're like running around here, there, everywhere, and not actually sitting down. A lot of families don't sit down at the dinner table with each other to eat their meals. That's really important, to be able to sit down and relax and talk about your day, so you can actually digest properly. Not having liquid at the same time as your meals. So you either have it before or afterwards. But if you're sipping, then you're diluting your digestive enzymes. There's a few things. 2 foods that are bitter foods that stimulate digestive enzymes: olives and your bitter lettuce. So rocket. If you have them prior to a meal, they will stimulate digestive enzymes. So the Greek people, they're very good with having their olives prior to a meal, or having some rocket prior to stimulate those digestive enzymes. So that will help you to digest food. I guess not overeating is a big thing. And then also alcohol. So alcohol obviously is going to affect your gut health. A lot of Australians tend to binge drink on the weekends. So on the weekends, just give yourself a limit of like 1 or 2. Try and have water in between, so you're not then tempted to drink more, and that will fill you up. Just little tricks like that you can do. But yeah, certainly trying to avoid the Macca's run at the end of the night, so you're not loading yourself up with empty calories that are going to affect your gut health that way, and do more like home cooked meals. Or if you do go out, things like Mad Mex, there's like beans and brown rice and, really good foods there. There's lots of takeaway foods that do have really good whole foods, and they're not just processed foods. So it's just about choosing when you go out, like whole foods, rather than going for the junky stuff. So yeah.
So much more choice now. I remember, 10, 15 years ago when I was looking for good takeaway, it was such a mission.
Yeah, there was nothing, there was no options. But my son loves Mad Mex. He's just loves it. So it's good, nice and healthy options.
Nice. The olives are a good tip. I eat most food, and the one that I hate is olives. I'm going to put over that.
So you like rocket?
Rocket's nice.
Yeah,
I could do
okay,
rocket.
cool. So you can do rocket instead. Yeah, so
Yeah.
just even like a salad with rocket will stimulate. Lemon's good for digestive enzymes, and apple cider vinegar is good for digestive enzymes as well. So there's a few different things that you can do there.
Nice. Sounds good. What about stress? How does that impact our health and gut health? And do you have some things or strategies in your practice that you use to help with stress?
Well, I'm a Buteyko practitioner. So if we have a couple of minutes, I could actually go through the breathing technique, because what happens is a lot of people are over breathing. They're breathing from the mouth. So we should use our mouth to speak and to eat, but we should breathe through our nose. Even it's really interesting in Hollywood, if they're trying to portray someone as not that intelligent, what they'll do is get them to breathe through their mouth. So walk around with their mouth open, breathing. And that in, what they're looking forward to as an actor, that makes that person look not as intelligent. So if you just can pop your hands like up like this on your legs. And so we're going to be breathing just through our nose, not through our mouth. So I'm going to get you to breathe in through the nose, out through the nose, and at the end, block the nose for 1, 2, 3, 4, and relax. Let your forehead drop down. Let your eyebrows relax. Breathe in through the nose. Breathe out through the nose. And block your nose for 1, 2, 3, 4, and relax. Breath in through the nose. Breath out through the nose. And block your nose for 1, 2, 3, 4, and relax. Not if you're starting to feel more saliva or tingling in your hands or cool hands. Yeah. Breathe in through the nose. Breathe out through the nose. And block your nose for 1, 2, 3, 4, and relax. So you can do that for 4 minutes. Having more saliva is a sign that you're getting air shortage, and air shortage is going to redirect circulation to the brain. So if you're having a panic attack, if you're feeling really stressed about, say, for example, you've got to do a presentation at work and you've got to speak and you're nervous about speaking in front of people, you can do, it's called 4-minute breath holds. And you just do that for 4 minutes and get the air shortage happening. And also breathing from the stomach instead of breathing from the chest. So the reason people get panic attacks or anxiety or stress is because they're breathing too much. So it's not that they're not breathing enough. They feel like they've got lack of oxygen, but they're actually breathing too much. So they need to slow their breath right down. So that's a really good technique, Buteyko, just to help calm the nervous system. Even going for a walk in nature, you do the 5 senses. So you'll look to see, is there a bird? Is there something like a really pretty tree? Smell, like what smells can you smell? You might taste, say, for example, like if there's flowers or plants that you know that you can eat, you can taste them. Touch. So even hugging a tree, I have a friend and we go and do some tree hugging together. And you know the gums that have that really soft, it's really nice to put your face up against that. And yeah, what did I do? Taste, touch, smell, a sound, and then looking. So just basically looking and listening. And you might hear a beautiful bird or you might hear like a little animal, but spending that time in nature is really important. And we call it recharging your green battery. So that's if you're sitting in front of a screen all day, if you're in an office all day with aircon, fluorescent lights, then that will really affect your nervous system. So trying to get some time out in nature. And it really is important for your immune system as well. So people with the reduced cases of COVID and viral infections, they tend to be people who exercise outdoors every day rather than in a gym, because obviously in a gym there's a lot of bacteria, you're rebreathing other people's oxygen, whereas if you go for a walk, then you're breathing fresh air, so it's more important.
Beautiful. I think they're really, really good tips. I felt so good after that breathwork sequence. That was really lovely.
So if you have more saliva, it means you're getting air shortage, which is what our goal is. So yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, I didn't even consciously notice it until you said, do you have more saliva? And I'm like, yes, I do.
So some people can get there very quickly. So you're obviously someone who does practice like relaxation and nervous system things, even meditation. So people are like, I can't meditate. Go on YouTube, type in guided meditation. If you want to work on love, type in guided meditation love. If you want to work on money, type in guided meditation money. You know, if you want to work on relationships or career goals, type in guided meditation, whatever it is you want to work on. And YouTube has it all for free. So you can jump on there and listen to it, and you don't have to be an expert at meditation. Anyone can meditate. Anyone can sit there and listen to someone speak and direct them. So yeah.
And I think too, if I do have a meditation practice, and if I have a meditation practice and I feel like it's a bad day for it, like I'm just thinking and whatnot, I still feel so much better afterwards, even if I feel like I wasn't focusing well, or I was sort of in my mind and wandering with thoughts. It's still so effective. But sometimes you can think, oh no, I was lost in my thoughts, so it wasn't any good and it didn't do anything. But that's actually not correct. Like, it's still really effective, really helpful.
And do you do that every day? Is that like a daily practice?
Yeah.
Excellent. That's great. Yeah. So just centering yourself. And some people are a bit funny about meditation, and I say, well, you can read your Bible sitting there. So phones off, no screens on, and just sit there and read your Bible. If people are really funny about meditation, then they can do that. So that's another option. Even just sitting there reading a book is really helpful, as long as you're not having screens in the background or anything, just sitting there reading a book. So little kind of practices like that can really help.
Absolutely. And I love that you said about recharging the green battery.
Yeah.
I remember listening to a doctor, and he was talking about some research about how good sunshine is for our health.
Yeah.
He said there was a point, I might get this is kind of what he said, about 15 minutes in the sun, and there's just something that happens to our mitochondria, and we just have this energy switch, and it's so beneficial. And there was another study that the hospital bed closest to the window gets discharged significantly earlier than the hospital bed further away from the windows.
Interesting, yeah. Well, so when you go outside, you're best not to wear sunglasses, because when you wear sunglasses, you don't absorb melatonin from the sun. So it's really important to walk outside without sunglasses on. So people who do night duty have high rates of cancer because they have lower levels of melatonin. So it's really important to take sunglasses off, go for a walk. If you're concerned about the sun, wear a hat, but don't wear sunglasses when you're outside as much as possible. Obviously, that glare, when you're driving in the afternoon, you might need to pop your sunglasses on for that, but as much as possible when you're outside, try and keep your sunglasses off. So
absolutely. Do you have any last words of wisdom or anything else that you'd like to share with everybody?
I just want to tell people that you are your own doctor. You are your own naturopath. No naturopath, no doctor. No one can tell you what you can and can't do, or what you can and can't put in your body. You have to go with what sits right with your soul. And I think that's really important. I always say to people, when you come away from an appointment, does that sit right with you, what you've heard and what they've recommended? Or do you want to get a second opinion? And also get a second opinion if you feel really uncomfortable with something a doctor said to you, or they've said to you, you will be dead if you don't do X, Y, and Z, or whatever it is. And talk to your family, meditate on it. You can often get a lot of answers with meditation. And even in the shower, I will often ask my guides in the shower questions, and then I'll get answers and information that way. But be open to being your own practitioner, because you are the person that heals you. No one else heals you. So whenever you get better, it's because you've done the thing to heal yourself. So just empowering people to know that they're in charge of their own health, and no one else is in charge of it, and no one else can cure you of anything, because it's your body. So you need to do the work.
Absolutely. I think that's very, very powerful words, but also very, very empowering words too.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Jen. It has been an absolute joy having this conversation.
Lovely meeting you.
You certainly know your stuff, and I learned a lot. Yeah, this has been really great. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Thank you.